Hi everyone, my name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor. In today's edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews, we will cover a very interesting multi-commodity company, and that is Power Metal Resources. I'm joined by CEO Mr. Sean Wade. Sean, welcome to my show and thank you for coming on.
Thank you very much for having me, Lucian.
I would like to start with your background. Please tell us, who is Sean Wade? How did you end up in natural resource sector? And of course, how did you become a Power Metal CEO?
Thank you. Well, unlike a lot of people in the mining sector, I'm not a geologist by training or a mining engineer. I'm a finance guy. So I spent first 20 years of my career in capital markets. I started at an old firm called Cazenove & Co. back in the early 1990s, and for most of for that 20 years, I was advising institutional asset managers on investments, but with a specialization to a large extent in mining and helping mining companies to raise money in markets. So that was my sort of area of interest from the finance side. And then about 10 years ago, I moved into an investor relations role in a mining company. And since then, I've had various roles in investor relations, business development, and corporate communications across the mining sector. And that culminated in March this year when I was appointed as CEO at Power Metal Resources. So immediately prior to that, I'd been working with Power Metal as a consultant, helping them with some of the investor relations and corporate messaging. And my predecessor, Paul Johnson, wanted to step down from the business, and he asked me to take the place. So that's been it's been a very busy 6 months or so. It's a very exciting business. There's lots going on, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Yeah. That's a sort of quick overview. So I approached this role. I have a team of geologists who work here. So we've got 4 highly qualified geologists, and essentially, my job is to obviously represent the company to investors and to the capital markets, to obviously express that message and to interact with our shareholders and investors, but also really to help the geologists with the financing side of the business. So when we look at the projects, we have to think about how we're going to finance them, how are we going to exit those investments at some point in the future, and how do we optimize our capital structure in order to generate the best returns for shareholders. So and it's that working alongside the geological experts hopefully is what gives us an edge in our business model.
Yeah, for geologists, that is an excellent thing. You have a lot of projects, so great stuff. Similar question for the company. Please give us some introduction of the company and explanation of your business model, and then we will go from there and cover some of your projects.
Okay, so Power Metal Resources is listed on the AIM segment of the London Stock Exchange. We're roughly 20 million market cap as it stands today, and the company in its current form as Power Metal Resources has really been in existence for about 4 years. I mean, it goes back a bit further under different names and different management, but the current business model and the brand, if you like, dates back 4 years to when Paul Johnson took over as CEO and put the strategy in place that we're currently executing. So it's a well-established business. We have we're quite well known in the mining sector, and we have a slightly different business model to the sort of typical AIM listed explorers, and that is to say, we are what would be described as a prospect generator or a project incubator model. In fact, some have described us as like an investment bank or a merchant bank in the natural resources space. So what that means in practice is that we seek to acquire assets that are typically at an early stage. We then seek to undertake methodical and cost-effective early stage exploration. That can mean various things, from geophysical surveys, geochemical work, whether that's soil sampling or airborne magnetics or whatever. And we seek to add value to the project, and obviously also including some exploration drilling. And we look to add value to the extent that we would typically identify, for example, very high quality drill targets. And then we look to monetize those positions either through an IPO, so a spin-out IPO, where the investors of that spin-out IPO would be responsible for funding the further exploration, or strategic joint ventures, or even an outright sale. The important point here is that we run a fairly capital light model, so we're a sort of advanced investor, if you like, but our shareholders are not the ones typically who would pay the large exploration bills. So what you're getting as a shareholder is essentially an expanding balance sheet as our investments increase in value, and you have exposure to the commodity cycle and obviously exposure to potential exploration discoveries.
Mhm.
Don't have the exposure to the very high levels of capital expenditure that would be associated with the development phase of mining. So we're an explorer. We're not seeking to take assets all the way up the value chain to production. We're looking to explore, discover, and then to crystallize that value through a corporate finance exercise, whether, as I say, whether that's IPO or joint venture, depending on the circumstances.
Sounds good. 10 commodities over 3 continents in your portfolio. Which commodities and projects, let's start with commodities, are in your focus? I believe that is dependent on the time frame, of course, but give us some clarification, please.
Well, I think one of the things we're most excited to talk about, and which is particularly in market focus at the moment, is our uranium business in Canada. So I think a lot of your listeners will be familiar with the Athabasca Basin in Saskatchewan, which is the #1 address in the world for uranium discovery. You think of Cameco and Denison and big companies like that who are well established in that region. We have 16 licenses in and around the Athabasca Basin itself. So we've got 6 licenses in the basin, 11 in the immediately surrounding it. And these licenses are highly prospective for uranium. Now, we've been waiting a long time for the uranium bull market to get underway. And there's a lot of people who've been bulls for a very long time. In one of my previous roles, I was at a company called Berkeley Energia back in 2018, I think it was. And we were patiently waiting at that time for this market to really pick up, and that's now finally started to happen. So we're looking at $70+ a pound for uranium or U3O8, and we are in a fantastic position to give investors exposure to that with 17 licenses, which we've undertaken well, it's the largest exploration program we've undertaken to date in our uranium portfolio, and that's taken place this year. Still going on, but the results are coming in now and showing very, very interesting signs of potential discovery. So we're very keen to get the message across to shareholders that through Power Metal you can have fantastic exposure to what is one of the really commodities in the market at the moment, with a very high chance, we think, or very high potential, we think of major discoveries. So it's a very, very exciting time for us, and we're very keen to share with investors the results we're seeing, and there's going to be more of that coming up. We've also got doing a partial spin out IPO from the uranium portfolio, which is at the moment it's in its early stages, but we'll be talking a lot more about that over the balance of this year and into Q1. But that will give investors the opportunity for pure play exposure just to uranium exploration in this important area. And it's fair to say that in the London market, there's very few ways that one can actually play uranium exploration. It's obviously, if you go to Canada, there are lots of juniors. But if you look at the London market, there are very few. So we think that giving investors that opportunity for direct exposure is very exciting. So we're very keen to get that message across, and I think that as far as I'm concerned, with the macro situation, there's a long way to run in this bull market for uranium, and I think we're going to be able to deliver a lot of value to our shareholders from that portfolio.
Yeah. You also have another project in Canada, and that is one in British Columbia. What can you tell me about this one?
So I think we're talking about ion battery resources. So this is we have two lithium projects and one graphite project there. This is fairly early days. We're undertaking some exploration there, and we're expecting some results on that soon, and we're going to update the market on that. But that's a very, very interesting project set, and a very good jurisdiction, and obviously I mean, lithium in particular, is very much in focus as well from the point of view of the energy transition. So we're excited about being able to deliver more news there, which we're looking forward to doing in due course. At some point, I think that business will make a very interesting IPO, but I think we want to add a lot more value to it before we go down that road. But we'll be talking about a lot more probably in the early part of next year.
Okay. Let's move to your Australian gold assets. Can you give us some overview in which stages are those projects? What are the plans?
So, I mean, the main Australian gold asset is what's called New Ballarat Gold Corporation. We are a 49.9% shareholder in that project as a joint venture with Red Rock Resources. It's a very, very high quality asset. You've got nearly 1,900 square kilometers of license footprint, and that's within the historic Victoria goldfield. So you're talking about the southeast of Australia, and that includes two high-grade former working gold mines. There is a lot of exploration. Well, there has been a lot of exploration. There's more underway, and we're looking to again, we're looking to crystallize value for shareholders in that project. But I think the Victoria gold story is well understood by investors. The Victoria goldfields, the Ballarat mine, the mine itself goes back to the 1870s, and is strongly associated with that sort of early stage, kind of gold rush and so on. So it's a well-known area and highly prospective, and it's a very exciting opportunity. So typically we do focus on energy metals or power metals, as we put it, the critical minerals for the energy transition, but we also do have exposure to gold, and that's and that's what you're seeing there at New Ballarat.
Same question for Botswana assets and Tanzania assets. So at what stages are those projects, and what are the plans?
So the main one I think people like to focus on in respect to the African businesses is what we call the Malopo Farms complex. So that's where we are an 87% or just under 88% shareholder. Now, this is a very, very large license area. You're talking about roughly 1,700 square kilometers. It's in southwestern Botswana, and that's where we're targeting nickel, copper, and PGE, platinum group metals mineralization. Now, this is quite well advanced as a project. We have done 2 diamond drill programs. We have a lot of very good data. We've proven out, we believe, a geological model, and this potentially is a district scale asset. Could be, it has the potential to be a world-class nickel deposit. Now, to really make the discovery and to really prove it out, I think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, a lot of exploration drilling, and I think to get to that point, we're looking to partner with probably another mining company on a strategic joint venture basis to really to fund that. I mean, you're talking about probably 10,000 meters of drilling needed. I mean, you could be 10 plus $1 million worth of work there, and so our job at the moment is to de-risk this project as much as we can, so that we can get into those partnerships, but more importantly, to get into a partnership with the best possible valuation for our shareholders. So we want to de-risk the project as much as we can to do that, and that's what we're undertaking. And we're in a position to update shareholders very soon on the next stage of that project. I can't unfortunately say much more about it at the moment, but we will be talking about that very soon. And I'm sure that the shareholders will be very pleased to hear that there's a lot of progress being made, and we believe that there is a lot of value to be unlocked in that project. So that's
yeah.
You mentioned Tanzania as well. Just before we leave Botswana, we also have a gold project. It's called Tati. Again, this is one that a lot of our shareholders are very focused on. Now, this is an 8-kilometer long golden soil anomaly, and this is in Francistown, or near Francistown in Botswana. Now, we found some over the course of the exploration we've been doing. We found some very, very high grades, and there is we also recently announced an increase in the scale of the project with a further anomaly identified. So there's a lot of progress being made there. And again, we will be updating the market in due course. But that is an exploration program that is currently happening, and we're expecting to be able to talk about some results of that program very soon. So I know shareholders are very interested in Tati, and we're going to be able to update I'm hoping in over the next sort of few weeks.
You have a notable portfolio of resource investments, listed investments and royalties. Can you please expand on this and give us some names and numbers?
Well, these are, I mean, there's quite a lot in there. I mean, we've done deals over time with various companies, and that has brought some listed investments into the business. I mean, we put them in this kind of label of the sort of the kind of resource fund, but that's really just that's just kind of where they sit for the sake of investors understanding. It's not necessarily a kind of a business unit in that sense. But for example, we have a holding in First Class Metals where we own 25%. That's a London listed exploration company which is focusing on precious metal exploration in Canada. So we hold a big position there. We hold a position in Kavango Resources, which is looking for copper and other assets in other commodities in Botswana. And there are various other bits and pieces, but I think investors will be able to look up the specific details in our materials. We go into detail for example, in our annual report. And people will be able to see a bit more detail on that. But those are the kind of two main holdings, and they're a great source of value. And they as the market picks up, and commodity prices hopefully increase, and certainly share prices alongside them, those are a great source of balance sheet expansion for us.
Yeah. Sean, who are the people behind the company? Who is on your board?
So there's 4 of us on the board, and we have a nice blend of experience both on the finance side and on the geology side. So I'm obviously on the board representing the management team as chief executive. You've got Scott Richardson Brown as our chairman. He has a very strong finance background, and he helps us a lot, particularly with the audit committee, but also overseeing the governance of the business. Ed Shaw, also from a finance background, and he's been extremely helpful, helping us to raise capital and to help us identify who our shareholders are and help us to interact with those. And then we've got two geologists, Bill Brady-Good, who was formerly the chief executive of Alien Metals and is a geologist by background with a long history with SRK, for example, and other places. And he also acts as technical director. So essentially, he kind of oversees the geology, if you like. And also O.A. Morton, who is also a geologist by background, and again, extremely helpful. In fact, we had a board meeting yesterday, and a very helpful sort of exchange of views on the geology of the business, the business opportunities, and it was a really good example of the board working, in a really sort of unified fashion, where we talked about, financing the projects, and the nature of the projects and the opportunities that they present. So it's a really good blend of experience, and a team that supports me and helps us generally, and is very, very, I think, something that shareholders can take a lot of confidence in.
Mm-hmm. John, one question that every CEO gets very often, and that is why invest in your company? Why invest in Power Metals? What is your investment rationale?
Well, I love that question because that's exactly what we're all about. I mean, my job, I have only one job, and that is to increase value and deliver value to shareholders. Now, the investment case really, it's important for people to understand, what I said right at the top, which is that we are not a classic sort of junior explorer in the sense that we're looking to take one or maybe two projects all the way from exploration, discovery, development into mining. We're a portfolio business, so our shareholders will have, in my eyes, a much less risky investment. You've got much more broadly spread. The risk is diversified across the business, so you don't have huge exposure to any one particular project. Obviously, our aim is for all the projects clearly to succeed, but outcomes are uncertain in exploration, as everybody knows. But you don't have that kind of 100% exposure. So, but you do have obviously exposure to discovery, and there is an opportunity across the portfolio for us to make major value enhancing discoveries. I talked about uranium, the Malopo in particular. These are two projects in particular where you could really hit something big and increase a lot of value. So that's the first thing. So you've got a diversified risk, but you've also got the discovery exposure. But also it's the commodities and the geographies where we are exposed. So you have the metals that we've talked about that focus on the transition into a greener economy. So we talked about uranium, obviously lithium, copper, nickel. These are the crucial elements that the world is in which we have a shortage, as everybody knows. You also have that important hedge of gold, and also some exposure to silver as well. So we've got the right commodity set. We're in high quality geographies. So we've talked about Canada, also North America, Australia, and Botswana, Tanzania, both very good mining jurisdictions. So you're not taking enormous geographic risk either. But also, we're very, very focused on delivering value. So because we seek to explore and then crystallize value, we're always looking for ways where we can deliver value to shareholders, and we do that obviously through our balance sheet. So, an investor at the moment would look at our balance sheet, and our net assets or our shareholders' equity at the moment is roughly the same as the share price, so the market cap. So if you're buying the share today, you're just buying the current projects as they stand. You're not paying for any exploration upside, any delivery of results. So I mean, I would say it wouldn't like, but we think that the shares are extremely good value, and when the market turns and the conditions, because the conditions are very, very poor, when market conditions improve, and we think that we have a lot of gearing to the upside. The other thing we didn't mention is an area where we're looking to acquire exploration licenses and develop our businesses in Saudi Arabia and Oman. I recently came back from a trip. Bill Brady Good and I went to Oman and Saudi Arabia last week, where we met with some potential partners. We met with government officials, and we're looking at acquiring some licenses and partnering with other companies to make an investment in that area. Now, this is a really exciting opportunity for our shareholders, because this is what's called the Arabian Shield, so the mineralized system that runs through both Saudi Arabia and Oman, and it's very, very underexplored. But both countries have made mining a big priority for their economies, and Saudi Arabia in particular, with its Vision 2030, they're very, very welcoming to foreign investors, and we're looking to make a major investment in both those countries of our skills, and bringing our geological experience and our project management experience and exploration experience into both those countries. So this is something where, although we don't have a lot of concrete news at the moment, it's very early days. We're just doing exploratory meetings, but I think there's going to be a very exciting story to tell over the balance of next year when we start to develop that business, and it's something I think shareholders can get very excited about.
So we can expect news from Saudi Arabia. That's great. Any other possible news flow in the upcoming period of few months from which projects?
Yes, well, I mean, the thing with running such a large portfolio is that it does generate a lot of news, and we are very, very busy, and we do communicate very regularly with the market, and both in terms of our regulatory news, but also these kinds of interactions as well. So you will hear a lot from us, and there will be news to come on the uranium portfolio, as I mentioned, where a lot of the work has already been done, and we're waiting for the results to come back. We're going to be updating shortly on Malopo and the next stage there. Tati, as I mentioned, an exploration program underway, which is obviously generating results, but also there'll be some corporate activity. We're looking forward to listing one of our businesses, which is called First Development Resources. That's a collection of high quality assets in Western Australia and the Northern Territory, where we're seeking a London listing, and we'll have more news on that very soon. So, and there are other potential activities, corporate activities going on within the portfolio that we're looking forward to being able to report. So there's definitely a lot of news, and you know, I hope that we'll be able to speak again and to update you and your listeners on our progress.
Definitely looking forward to update my viewers and your shareholders, new ones and potential new ones and the old ones. And this was Sean Wade. Thank you very much for being my guest. It was a great chat, and looking forward to chat again sometime soon.
Thank you very much, Lucian.